It's all very well being a YouTuber, but how do I make my videos? Well, join me and we'll find out. Roll titles. Well, hi YouTube, Brian James, that Micro Four Thirds guy with you once again on this rather chilly autumn day here in Cumbria. And I had a request on my Patreon channel as to how I go about actually producing my videos. Now you might think that there's no production values whatsoever in my videos, and that's purely up to you, but I do a little bit of production, and I do try to make a decent product to put up onto YouTube in a particular style which suits me. I'm very laid back, and I tend to do an awful lot of just talking to the camera rather than trying to preach things. It's just easy to just have conversations with people, and that tends to be my style. Now, as I say, this was from one of my patrons on my Patreon channel. If you haven't subscribed to my Patreon channel, you'll find that there's a link along the bottom here. A link along the bottom, and also it's underneath in the description as well if you want to do it. There's 3 different tiers, and you get different things from it. And the good thing about being a patron of the channel is you help to keep the channel going. Now, in that, I do try and put something back, so you'll find that by the time you see this video, if you're not a patron, it'll have been already on the Patreon channel for a couple of weeks, so they'll have seen it before you. And there's a few videos which get put up into there first before you ever see them. But that's the advantage of being a patron. However, how do I go about making my videos? Well, they're fairly straightforward. I'm not a great videographer. I'm a photographer rather than a videographer, although I'm doing more video work than I ever take photographs these days for some reason. It seems to dominate time. But I also try and do things fairly simple in my production. Now, I use a range of cameras, either Lumix or Olympus, as you no doubt gather from the channel, being the Micro Four Thirds guy. And what I'm doing at the minute is my little G100. But basically, I take my videos on this. I tend to shoot everything at 1080p at 25 or 30 frames. And that seems to suit me ideal for what I uploaded to, which is well, the only place I really upload videos to is YouTube. I do links from my YouTube channel onto Facebook to try and promote it a little bit, but the only place I go up onto is YouTube in reality for hosting, and obviously my Patreon page as well. When I get them back, I used to use the less expensive version of Sony Vegas, but basically I've stopped using that so much. I find it cumbersome because a lot of the time I'm out and about. I'm out there in the car or out and about in the caravan, and I don't tend to like editing. I detest editing, as you'll find out in a few moments when we look at the process. But I tend to detest the idea of editing, trying to get my head round cuts and things like that. I just tend to like to do a straightforward thing to camera. So what I tend to use now, more than anything else, is my iPad, and I've just gone to a new iPad. I've gone to an iPad Air 5th generation, which has only just been replaced now. 256 gigabytes of storage on that, and I need that because videos tend to get very, very big. So what I'll tend to do is I'll take the camera out, I'll do some shots either in the car, in the caravan, or out and about like here in Cumbria, and I'll take those back. I tend to do most things in one take, and I'll do little dropouts every so often on the edit, which again we'll see shortly. If I take photographs, then and I've got a few little photographs I'll throw in purely to show how the effect works. But if I've got photographs, then I tend to throw those in into the mix before, so I've got a good idea of what's going on. The hardest thing about doing these videos, in reality, is thinking of ideas. I'm thinking about doable ideas which will motivate me, because there are some great ideas come out on YouTube and in my Patreon channel as well, but to do it's just so much production it's untrue. Other ones just bore me, to tell you the truth. Some of my ideas just bore me because I think, well, if it's going to bore me, it's probably going to bore you, so I tend not to do those ones so much. So to getting good ideas, I tend to find is rather difficult. And also trying to find locations. There's cars go past when you're doing things like this. There's all sorts going on, and that proves to be a bit difficult at times. So I've now taken a video. I've now taken some stills. I'll decide if I'm going to put them into the running order or not. I'll put them at the end, and there's a slightly different technique for both. But usually what I'll do then is I'll start transferring them over, and to transfer them I'll use either the image app from Panasonic to get the stuff off the G100. There is another Panasonic app as well, which I tend to use as well if I'm using the G9 or the GX8, or the OI app from Olympus to get the stuff off that. I tend to put them wirelessly across. Although with the USB-C on my new iPad, it is very, very simple just to pop the card into a card reader. It wasn't so easy on the other ones with the lightning connectors. Now I can put them into a card reader and they can come across straight from the card. So there's various ways to do it. However, let's pop inside and have a look as to how I actually do the videos and what software I use. Okay, hi. Well, we're in my iPad at the moment. The iPad's where I tend to do most of my editing. And I use a couple of different programs. There are lots of different programs that are available, so don't panic about having to have the same one as I'm using, or having the same one as somebody else is using. There's a lot of programs available for whatever platform you're on, but the basics of what I do to edit are still the same. Now, the two main programs I use are Photoshop Express and Splice, which you can see in the top right hand corner here. So I'm going to go to Splice first of all. Now, Splice is a fairly straightforward, easy to use editing program, and I'm going to use the autumn video that I've just done. I'm going to create a new project on this, and what I tend to do is I'll record a couple of videos, but I also use my standard title video. So if I go to videos on this one, I'm going to go right down the bottom, you'll see that there's a whole lot of videos I recorded there, and if I look here, the one that highlighted, if I select that, and then I slide up, I've gone to video, so I'm looking at previous videos here, and I'll look for where my title video is, which is that one. And that's just 18 seconds of title videos which I previously got, and then the main body, and hit next. We'll give this one a, I think which is autumn test, and hit create in the top right hand corner there. Now what this is going to do is it's going to give me my video here, and this is the video I shot earlier. I've already transferred it over from my camera onto the computer, obviously, and let's have a look. Now this was done with my G100, which gives me a nice counting, so usually I've got my start just about immediately. And of course I can't hear it on this, so never mind. But basically what we're doing is we'll look at it for the sound. I don't have audio on this, it's not taking it from these videos because it's recording my microphone. So I'll just take you through approximately where it is, but that would be around about the point I've said my piece there. If I highlight this, I don't like to particularly cut it, so what I'll do is I'll just slide this back so that we've got the change at the right point. That brings me on to the title, which was the second of the videos I chose. And if I go on to the little link between the two, this gives me along the bottom a whole load of fades. And on this one, I tend to do my blur spin to the right. And as you can see, it's there. Where it joins the next video, again, I'll do my blur spin to the right. And again, because I'd done it on G100, I was straight on this video, and I know that much. There's a couple of other things I'll tend to do. If I do find where there's a car coming along here, and I heard the car in the background, realised there was no good, and as I say, don't have the audio on this. So what I did do is I found the right spot. Let's just pretend it's there. If I want to get rid of the bit, because I actually paused as the car went past me, I came back in there, so let's splice that. So split it there. And if I was listening to it, I would listen to the audio to be right. Which would be around about there. Split it again. Get rid of that center section. And again, I tend to do a crossfade on this one just to make it nice and neat so it doesn't look too bad. And you can see, video-wise, that looks pretty much okay. Now I would have got the timing for the audio right if I could hear it, but obviously on this, you hear my microphone rather than what's coming out through that. Now the other thing is that I may want to be doing some things like putting pictures into it. So what I'll do on this one, if I just go back to the outside, I can do photographs and videos that I've taken in one of two ways. One is to do an overlay, in which case I'll do an overlay and I'll put a couple of photographs on here, the flowers, whichever order I want them. If I hit add, you see they're going to go across the top. Now with the overlay, as I move it onto that, you'll see that the photograph is slightly smaller than the screen. And this is where it would put as a default. Now I could either leave it there, I can, if I highlight that one, I can move it. For instance, I could put it on the top corner. I can, by grabbing the sides of it, the image, I can make it smaller and also twist it. I could put a nice Dutch slant if I wanted to. And as I move along, they'll switch on there. So again, I could put this one up there. This one down there, and we'll put this one into this corner. So if I wanted to be a little bit artistic, I could do that. Or I could just make them the same size as the full screen, or whatever I want. If I play this back, it'll switch all over the place. Very artistic, of course, very artistic. Now that's one way to put photographs in. Now I can carry on this process of going through the video and hitting it, splitting it, moving it, all the bits and pieces I want to. Let's undo that, top left hand corner, hit the undo and get rid of that split. But quite often I'll put a set of pictures at the end of a video. So let's widen it all the way to the end. And there's two things I'm going to do. Well, you can see that this was my goodbye on that bit. Now I put the pictures in. That's where I put the pictures in, so let's split it there. That's where I want to drop the pictures in just before I say my goodbyes. And on this one, I'll do it slightly differently. I'm going to go to media. I could either put a blank space in on media. In this one, I'm just going to select a whole load of photographs. Bop, bop, bop. Any order I want to put them into, it'll put them in the order that I tapped them. So if I was to then do it this way on, it'll put them into this order that I'm touching them. If I add that, then we have the photographs in there. So we can see that it's scrolling through. And these are quick changes. But what I tend to like to do on these ones is, again, I'll tend to do a crossfade on each photograph just to make it a little bit nicer as we go through. And let's go back to the beginning of that one. You'll see the difference on it. So this is where I'm saying it adds a bit of colour there, and let's go and have a look. And we can see that we have a nice crossfade between the photographs, or at least the first 3 or 4. So we get the idea of that. What I'll then do is, quite often I'll put music on. So if we get back to that point on the first cross, just hit somewhere on the background, and I can go to audio, add music, and there's a lot of, on this one, there's a lot of copyright free music. So I'll go and pick myself a track, and say I wanted Universe Returns. I don't know what that sounds like. Normally I could monitor it on this, but I'm not going to monitor it for this time. In it comes, and I can alter the audio if I want to by hitting the volume or not. And if I've got video amongst these, I'll have both sets. I could have put video on instead of stills, and I'll have both sets of sounds on that, and I can mute the audio whichever way I want it to be. And I actually want that to stop there, so what I'll do is I'll put a split, I'll highlight that, and I shall delete that. So the music will only last as long as the pictures are on. Now, it's not the best audio editor on this one, so you can't get nice fade outs, unfortunately. It does tend to come to an abrupt stop. So if I was to do this and I had the better resources of my other computer, I could possibly trim the music to exactly what I wanted to do. But this is usually good enough for here. But let's go to the end. Well, that's what I'm saying bye-bye on there. I'll then slide that end point so that we've got it. And what I'll do again on this one, I'll add media, go back to videos, and again I'll add my 18 seconds of titles to the end, put my blur spin on to the right, and I think that that's not quite long enough because it seems to be there. So what I'll do is I'll highlight this one, I'll just drag it out just a touch and make sure I got the word bye bye in properly. And that's it. And then go to the top right hand corner if I'm happy with that video, export the video. Oh, one other thing, if I am want to put any sort of lettering on, then I just can insert text and put that there, and I can, with the text, move it around on this one and resize it if I want to, and also change the angle just by clicking and dragging. So I'm using 2 fingers on it for this to drag them across and to rotate it. So that's good enough for me. And I can also, if I want to, I can make that longer on the screen, so it'll be on for 4.46 seconds. And you get the idea of that one. So there we are. The yellow box, by the way, is only because that is highlighted, so if it's not highlighted then you don't get the yellow box. It's only when I highlight it that you get the yellow box. Okay, if that's a video I'm happy with, then I hit the export in the top right hand corner. I export it normally as a full HD, and as it says, about 3 minutes to export, and hit the save button. Now you're not to close splice when it's doing this, so we'll come back to that in a second or two when it's done. So here it is, just about to finish, just about done, and it's reaching the end now. I can post it at different places if I want to. I tend not to hit the close button. I then hit the cross at the top left, and I've got 2 projects there, the newest one being Autumn Test. And if I close this off, I can bring that back on again. And now what I tend to do is I will go to my photos. I tend to save my photos in a an HD mode, a 1920 by 1080. And if I pick a photo to make a, because I'm going to make a thumbnail now, I've got that, and if I export this one to Photoshop Express, I'll bring it in. And very simple on this one, I can do what I want on this, but normally what I do is I just create some text on it, and I tend to use the, in this case, BA4. Again, any text, any photo editor that you've got and you like, if it does the job and can put titles on, that's all you need. So on this one, I'm just going to put this one and call it Autumn Test. It's done on that. I do quite like doing a colour of red on my titles and the stroke to white, which gives something like that, which a lot of people know as my sort of signature text on the picture. Sometimes I'll use a colour blue, but on this one I'll stick to the red, and that's that one happy for me, and that becomes my thumbnail for it. And it's as simple as that. Really, we don't need to do any more than that. I now go on to YouTube. I will upload that video onto YouTube. I'll just come into the videos here, because back to my pictures, because my video is being stored here. And you see that there's another one, 6 minutes 41 seconds. And if I hit that,
it's autumn. The nights are coming in, the days are getting shorter, the light's starting to disappear. But how do you get your inspiration to go out and take photographs when the light's not necessarily there? Join me and find out. Roll titles.
And I'm sure you know the rest on that one. So that's it, simple as that. I shall stop this recording and I'll come back to see you in a second. And that's pretty much all there is to it. The next step, of course, is to get onto YouTube on the app on there and to hit the little plus button down at the bottom and upload the video. Now, the next part, of course, once the video is up there, I go on to YouTube Studio, either on the web page or on the YouTube Studio app. The advantage of the web page is it makes it very easy for putting the end cards on, because I will put the end cards on, and they're the things which will point you to the next video, either the previous video I've done or to a playlist. And I have a fairly standard one of those, which is the last video, a playlist, and a link to my channel itself. So that's put onto there. I then usually just go off and grab the tags from a previous video, copy and paste those into the new one with a few little amendments to make it pertinent to what the subject matter is. And I go off and get the description from the details of the description from a previous video, and again copy and paste that in and just do a few little amendments onto that. I usually use the app rather than the web page on the iPad for doing things like putting the picture on, hitting the monetize button, and doing all those little bits and pieces, those little nicey bits and pieces. It's easy to use. Of course, then you upload it, which can be rather a drag on an iPad. It can take a long time, especially if you've got a long video. And it's really fairly essential to have a good internet connection for that. Once I've done that, I leave it because YouTube does checks on it. It also, I found out recently, takes quite a while before it does the conversion for the HD. So if I make it public too soon, then the first people who see it only ever see it as a low-res video, which looks pretty poor. And the reason I found this out is because I'd uploaded it. I thought, right, let's go and have a little look and see how it came out, and I was appalled by it. And it was only when I looked back on the Studio app that I realised that it hadn't actually done the high definition version of it. So when you get the HD version, it makes it all much better and all worthwhile on there. So before I send it live, I usually wait until all of its checks have been done and the HD version is ready. Once I've done that, I also make sure, as I say, that the correct thumbnail is uploaded at that point, and that's when I'll usually put it on. I'll put it onto playlists at that point, and I'll also make the video public. And that's about it. That's pretty much how I do my videos. They change around as to what I'm doing, what the subject matter is, but the basic principles of everything I do, you've just seen. So I hope you found this video useful. Thank you once again to my Patreon patrons for suggesting this particular one. But also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel on YouTube yet, hit the subscribe button below. It's free and dead easy to do. It doesn't cost you anything, and it really makes a big difference for me. Give me a big thumbs up. The big thumbs up matters more than you could imagine, because it really does help YouTube to spread it further and wider for more and more people to see. So, till the next time, keep on taking your photographs, keep on doing your editing, keep on uploading your videos, and keep on having fun with your videos and your photography. See you next time. Bye-bye.